Okay, we thank you, Patrick. And now we have an opportunity to go a bit further with the ideas that we heard about from Patrick's with this next panel on the built environment. So may I invite Maurice, Jenkins, Brian Freed, Brian Brooke, and Adam Handfinger to the stage, please. So, thank you for joining us today. The first thing I would like you to do is to tell us a bit more about yourselves and what you're working on. Just a little intro. We'll start with Brian. Yeah.
So I'm Brian Freed, CEO of Illuminex AI. We are building practical AI solutions to help airports enhance safety and have more effective maintenance of the airfield. So if you think about that area from the terminal to the fence, there's billions of dollars of infrastructure. Our goal is to help identify safety hazards, things like foreign object and debris, lights that are out, and to augment those human inspectors in the collection of data so that airports can be more efficient in their maintenance activities.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am a graduate of this fair university. I played football here, so I love everything about this school, okay? So yes, let's do this. I wear this ring proudly for a reason. My name is Maurice Jenkins. I am the former CIO for Miami International Airport. I am now the new CIO for Miami International Airport. So running Chief Information Officer, now Chief Innovation Officer, responsible for strategy. So my goal and my intent is to look at how we can effectuate change in the dynamics of what we do, from construction management, development, airport operations, the whole synergistic aspect. So as we go through this session, think about one thing. My airport is part of a series of airports that move 4 billion people globally. That 4 billion needs to go to 8 to 9, 10 billion in the next 10 to 15 years. As students in the room, as business professionals in the room, how do we help make that happen safely and securely? So I'm working on several initiatives right now. We'll talk about that during the session, but look at it from a holistic perspective. We're responsible to safely and efficiently move people and cargo in a global dynamic environment to ensure that we bring jobs. We are the largest economic engine in Miami-Dade County. So with that, I have a heavy lift on my shoulders, but it's a great opportunity to have this opportunity to be able to deep dive into what business strategy looks like. So it's a pleasure to be here.
My name is Adam Handfinger. I run a Miami law firm called Picard & Abramson that represents general contractors, but I'm also the co-founder and current chairman of Document Crunch, which is an AI-driven risk management tool for contractors or for the construction industry. Patrick was nice enough to give me a little bit of a warm intro into it, but basically we've applied artificial intelligence and the various models that are out there to the entire suite of construction documents, everything from contracts, submittal books. We're now reading drawing notes and basically every document type that exists in a construction project, primarily to help contractors reduce risk and make decisions and build the jobs in compliance with their requirements. It was born out of my role as a construction attorney representing contractors. I understood the pain point of dealing with documents and difficulty with compliance, and so that was where the platform came from.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Brian Brooke. I spent most of my career in the public sector working on ways to improve organizational efficiency and deliver public services through innovative new technologies and organizational change. I am currently working with a firm called AIWaysion, somebody that I ran into in the course of my work at a large public transit agency. And we are working to apply advanced artificial intelligence at the edge and in the cloud to improve the safety and efficiency of transportation systems, whether that's traffic, pedestrian, bike, micromobility, moving folks through an urban environment in particular, or a rural environment, as safely and as efficiently as we can. Nice to see you all here.
Thank you. This is the first, actually, that we have so many from the transportation sector on the panel, but also 2 from the aviation area. So this is a new territory that we are exploring now. So this conference is always a great, platform to hear about new technology that is presented here with all the promises about how it's going to change everything. But it's, as you know, it's one thing is a pilot project and another is impactful implementation. I would like to hear from each of you about I want you to pick the technology or the tool that you think has the greatest promise and that you will probably see implemented with great success. Like, pick your horse, basically.
So I'm biased because I'm a CEO of a company that's using Vision AI. So I'm going to pick my horse in Vision AI. But I think one of the reasons why it is at the forefront of practical implementations is a function of maturity. So if you were to look at the Gartner hype cycle for AI, LLMs are just coming off the peak of excitement, haven't hit the trough of disillusionment yet. And Vision AI has been well through the cycle and is fairly mature. So it is a much more well-tested and proven technology. So I think in terms of near-term business impact, it is better able to be embraced in a trusted manner. Long-term, I think large language models are going to be much more impactful, but not in the next 2 to 3 years.
Cool. I have to look at it from a different perspective, and I'll try the first one. How many people in here are not capitalists? Who doesn't like money? All right, cool. Now, I'm going on the right path then. So we look at it this way, and I create this analogy of I'm looking at every facet within my airport that drives efficiency. So when I'm looking at tech, I'm looking at AI, I'm looking at business models. If I generate revenue, if I can enhance the customer passenger experience, but at the same token create operational efficiencies, I'm doing my job within that airport space, right? So I look at it, and I'll give you one example. We might say my goal and the intent is to have what I call Airport 2.0. I will centralize everything in my airport. My loading bridges, I'm looking for mean time for failure. I just flew back from London. You know what it's like to come back off of a 10-hour flight and there's no loading bridge available because it's down? Not good. Or if you're flying to Charlotte at 12 o'clock and the customs doesn't open until 1 and you're stuck on an airplane, not a good thing. So I look at it from a standpoint of how can I do better predictability? Because we are in a reactive society, but I want better efficient planning. So Airport 2.0 lays a baseline for what the airport needs to look like. Then we look at that from construction management. I look at that for bathroom efficiencies. You're like, Maurice, why bathrooms? Because guess what? I did some sensors and some AI modeling around my bathrooms. And in one bathroom, I had over 100,000 people use it. Which means if I'm not sensorized, and I'm putting sensors in toilet paper dispensers, soap dispensers, because I realize one thing. If you go into a bathroom and it's not clean, I guarantee you're not going to buy a coffee, you're not going to go to a restaurant, and you just kill me in the court of public opinion. Right or wrong? Tell me I'm lying. Good job. If you tell me I'm lying, I'm not listening. But now, if you go back and you look at it from that perspective, in the business framework that moves 56 million passengers a year, right? And we're judged every day. We have to look at those efficiencies. Our retail has to be good. Our construction, our development has to be good. Our downtime has to be good. We have an aging population like San Antonio at one point in time. My moving walkways, my escalators, my conveyances need to be up, right? A down escalator takes a very bad rap, and you know that very well. So for me, my entire airport ecosystem is now challenged a lot more than a specific vertical, so to speak. So I'm building frameworks around efficiencies for aircraft turnaround time, because I only have 45 minutes. I need to capture you. I'm looking for efficiencies to address FOD. This is where this comes into play. We don't want another airline crash. We don't want to have any delays. We don't want those things that changes the passenger perception of travel. And I need to look at it this way. Realize one thing, 30% of people traveling today are first-time travelers, which means when those individuals are slowing down, going through checkpoint, think about it. So how can I help create an efficiency for you? I need to be able to work with my business acumen, the business clients, communities, the new startups, the new engagement. How can I create a new dynamic around one thing? I have a $12 billion capital construction program going on at my airport. All right? I need to integrate technology, innovation, and all of that to create efficiencies now and going into the future. That's a challenge for me. So I have a series of things I'm working on. A lot of them are AI-based, and I look forward to continuing this some more. I could do this all day, by the way, so I'm gonna get off in a second, but look at it holistically. This is an ecosystem that runs 24/7, very dynamic, but for every action in one point of that ecosystem is a reaction for somewhere else, and I have to look at that in its totality.
So I'm going to answer it, I think, in two different ways. I don't, right now the technology is advanced enough. I don't think that's the problem. You're going to hear a lot of my answers today are going to be based upon the adoption problem. So when I was looking at the question as what are like the smart city technologies that I've seen, not in my space as a co-founder of a tech company, but rather as a construction lawyer and I guess just regular human, there's been two that have particularly stood out to me, and I think it's because they don't require adoption by the general public. One is smart parking systems, so when you go to the airport to call over to Maurice and you're driving around looking for a spot, and it tells you how many spots are available in the various places, that has created a lot of efficiency in parking. And I was recently involved in a construction project that had that. And then the other one is AI-driven traffic signals. I think that's also created a lot of efficiency, and again, requires no behavior change from the general public. So adoption is not a big problem there, and I see a big ROI in those two areas. As a construction lawyer, and taking off of some of what Patrick said, I think the next big thing, and that I am most optimistic about, is creating frictionless payments on construction projects. The inability to timely pay trade contractors and flow money from a lender to the owner to the general contractor and downstream, and the process surrounding that is what leads to the large majority of delays and defaults. The tech is now there. You heard Patrick talk about open space. Open space does a 360 review of an entire project and can tell you how much drywall was hung on any given day. Is it compliant with the plans? Platforms like Document Crunch can digest the compliance requirements in order for payment to be made. So on and so on. I could piece together a tech stack very quickly that could show you that the entire payment process could be automated and in real time. So if Maurice hung X number of drywall today, Maurice gets this amount in his bank account tonight, bypassing the whole system. Why don't we have it? Because that requires a ton of adoption from a lot of people who have motivations to not make that system frictionless. So I don't see that happening quite yet, but it's interesting because the tech is there, but the adoption problem will prevent that from happening quickly. So the ones that I think are having the biggest impact now as you think of different technologies are ones where only a few people have to decide and everyone else just goes along.
Well, I definitely want to second a couple of Adam's points on parking efficiency and traffic light management, and some of the new technology apply to that. Both are great opportunities. Just a little background in the transportation field. There is a lot of legacy technology, a lot of legacy systems out there. Induction loop counters and timed traffic lights. That sort of a thing. And those can be made to work much more efficiently with the actual real-time conditions of traffic. So the introduction of IoT sensors using video analytics, that sort of a thing, and then layering on top of that the ability of artificial intelligence to take all that data and to create the efficiencies in real time or based on historical analysis is fantastic. I don't know how many folks have seen a transportation management center where they take the information gathered from just regular dumb video cameras and traffic sensors from all over the city and portray them on a huge bank of monitors, and they have people in there watching that and looking for something to react to, dispatching emergencies and that sort of a thing. The artificial intelligence can make that much, much more efficient. So that is an excellent opportunity. The other one that I want to quickly mention is the rise of connected and autonomous vehicles. And the ability of them to communicate with each other and with the infrastructure itself to create those efficiencies in real time. Another very exciting opportunity. So that's where we see in transportation as being the great opportunities in the new technologies.
Right. Well, Adam makes a good point. Like, I asked you to pick the technology, but the success of these projects really depends on adoption and integration across, institutions, disciplines, and especially regulatory frameworks. For instance, when the BIMs appeared on the scene, we all thought, oh, wow, this is going to integrate everything from design to construction document, project management, construction. Everything is going to be on those digital platforms, but this never happened. And I gather it's because of the whole liability and insurance framework, which actually mandates that those stages in the project remain separate and not be integrated into one digital platform. So, and you offered also interesting examples. So I would like you to talk about those kinds of obstacles. It's not about technology, but it's about how they, where does the resistance come from?
Well, I think it's a combination of things, right? If you look at it, when we talk about BIM and we talk about digital twin, I've created a new business unit as well. So if I never hear the word digital twin ever again, all right, I now call it enterprise spatial business intelligence. Ooh, get a degree in that. I'll pay you a lot of money. It's worth a lot. So now we're looking at a whole new concept of how we look at leveraging AI within construction management, and business development. That's where Adam comes into play. But we want to be able to take those construction drawings, because at the end of the day, when you build that garage, I need to get those drawings. I need to be able to ingest them. I need to be able to do modeling around that for the future and effective planning. The same way the Congressman said earlier, the same way we can layer some of this technology, right? So my team that I'm actually rebuilding, and by the way, I will be hiring in a couple of months, so hint, hint. But at the end of the day, when you're building on these frameworks, you need to look at that from a construction management perspective, a development perspective, as well as having developers as well, is leveraging those business models, those AI agents that we're developing to do better predictability and enhancing the time to deliver. All right, we need to go from months and years to weeks and days because for the efficiencies that are required within our environment. So we're leveraging those tools as much as we can. From an adoption perspective is, one, we're a government. So one of the hardest factors comes into play is, one, you need good governance, right? Two, you need to be able to put guardrails around it. Three, if you have a sandbox, you could contain that data, but once it goes out to the free world, who validates that data? Where's the original source coming from? AI is already biased already. AI hallucinates already. And all of these things you need to now be able to control and mandate, because still, they also need to have the human in the loop and the individual saying, you're not taking my job. Because we still have the responsibility of signing off on these things, right? So at the end of the day, it's effective management, effective guardrails, finding a way to adopt that you can apply it to the framework of what you're dealing with and not leave it to AI to be the final decision maker. And then people to realize that it's there as an enhancement tool. And realize one thing, AI came about because there was a prescribed need. It didn't just come out the blue overnight and say, hey, here's AI. Someone says, I'm tired of doing this, and we need to have process changes, and now the advent. So we've already opened Pandora's box. We're not going to close it, but we need to find better ways to manage and guardrail it. I think that would be my position.
And if I could piggyback on it, I think one of the things that Maurice really highlighted is that as technologists, we often get consumed by the benefits and the cost of technology. So we talk about how much it's going to cost to do this. But what we fail to address is the operational cost of change. So when Maurice looks to deploy a new technology, or any buyer looks to deploy a new piece of technology, in many cases, the cost of implementing that technology, the CapEx to acquire it is probably an order of magnitude less than the operational cost of change in terms of changing processes and changing standards to deploy it. And so I think we need to make sure that the solutions we're proposing, the best way to reduce the operational cost of change is incrementalism. And so as innovators, we often have this grand vision of, AI autonomously deployed, and it all sounds great until you realize that the operational cost of making that big of step function is far beyond the capacity of the consumer to acquire.
So I see this again from both perspectives. I'm a seller and founder and developer of tech. Document Crunch, I think, is like 450 logos using their platform now. So I've seen a good number of those companies go through the iterations, good, bad, and ugly, of trying to adopt our platform. And also as a consumer, because I'm running, my law firm has got 11 offices, and I sit on the national board, and I'm helping make tech decisions for a large group of lawyers. Lawyers are, you heard Patrick call us out, we're terrified of AI, right? The billable hour model is threatened by it. Young associates don't have much to do anymore because you could ask the best lawyer in the world, your AI, the right questions, and get at least partially the way there. So I've seen the impact of people's prejudices, fears, and biases, and how it impacts adoption, which is going to be a major problem in any organization. But the other real problem is that you've got these silos that exist. And I view it in a couple of different ways. When you talk about cooperation across like a construction project, or even at the airport where I've done a lot of construction work, you have all these different contingents of people who all have different functions. And as you're trying to roll out a tech solution that's to be used by all of them, to be collaborative and cooperative, like the goal is of many of these platforms, it's the silos that cause problems. They're siloed not only in their functions, their goals, but contractually. And their risk profiles are all different. So I remember when BIM first came out, and the biggest question, and I probably spoke at least 10 or 15 times on it, I know I wrote a few articles, what is the risk now of all of these different entities all cooperating towards one model? What if someone makes a mistake? Who's responsible? And we got tied up in all of the what ifs, and it's slowed. Now it's pretty much, by the way, anyone that doesn't know, it's building information modeling, where you basically build the building in 3D before you build it in real time. And it's a great solution, but it required all these different people that are siloed to come together to create one platform. And the contracts didn't allow for it, the way the risk profiles didn't allow for it, and we ultimately came up with a solution where we addressed it contractually that broke down one of those barriers. But we're seeing that now in any organization, and take the airport or any sort of public agency, and it's 10 times worse than a law firm, I'm sure. But you have to bring people together, and you have to pick solutions that are going to help as many of your stakeholders as possible solve for their pain points. And if you do that, I think you start breaking down the barriers. But that's a really big challenge in order to get that done.
So one of the barriers out there to adoption is the regulations that the companies need to play in. Now the regulations are a great thing. I mean they're the public organizations looking out for the public interests and encoding those, but some of the public agencies, especially in the transportation world, need to be thinking ahead about what these new technologies create, what the possibilities open up, and how they can think more broadly about the regulatory schemes, whether that's the traffic design manual or how autonomous vehicles can operate on the roadways. And they need to be ahead. I mean, it's not the best outcome to wait for the tech companies to move fast and break things and forge their own way despite the regulations. The regulators need to be thinking ahead. So it's a point of friction that needs a little bit more work, I think.
Also, if I could add, for whatever reason, people have this reluctance for change. So that's why I think there's an issue when it comes to adoption, especially with AI and so forth. And I think what we also find is not getting everyone to create that consensus and buy-in. The best product can actually die a slow death. And I look at it, and the easiest analogy was, a lot of you weren't born yet. Yeah. Okay, let's do this real quick. You remember when the ATM card first came out? You probably said no. But at the end of the day, everyone still was at the bank in line to get $20 from the teller, but no one wanted to use the ATM. Right? It was an adoption issue. And it's the same thing when you're looking at data and data privacy and leveraging AI. I have the same issue in my airport today in using biometrics to safely move you. You don't want to share your credentials because you say Big Brother's watching you, right? Nobody wants to do that, right? But how many of you have Amazon Prime? So your credit card, all your information is out there in the free world right now. And by the way, you can more than happy to send it to me. I'm more happy to use it. But you won't let me use your biometric credentials to safely allow you to traverse through our airport ecosystem. We have an adoption issue. So I also find myself and Adam being salespeople to sell you to understand why we need to adopt to be able to engage.
I think the biggest fear has been, this is going to replace me. I mean, I get the privacy issues and all that, and that exists with any kind of technology. But the biggest thing that I've seen over the adoption and watching my customer success team onboard all these platforms is everyone is scared they're going to be replaced. And Patrick said this, but I think it's really important to restate. None of these platforms should ever be looked at as replacing humans. You have to have humans in the loop. And you can't talk about, and there's some platforms out there that actually say this, that they're going to replace people, right? And the platforms that I'm involved with, and there's a few more than just Document Crunch, we always say we're empowering people. And you have to build in, our platform has actually built in the need for humans to actually verify the results. So when we're talking with potential customers or we're onboarding their teams, they can actually see that the platform's not taking their job, it's just making it easier. Because you physically cannot get to the next step without actually putting eyes on the results that the platform has told you and checking the box that it's been done. And so it's requiring the human input. Now, it's less efficient than it otherwise would be because it technically doesn't need the human interaction. I mean, it's still 95% to 100% accurate. But by putting that in, even though it wasn't necessary, drove adoption much faster because people were less fearful that we were taking their job.
It was interesting to hear Patrick conclude his talk with this argument about how AI is going to enable us to focus on the important things like placemaking, community. But that's not usually the arguments we hear in relation to smart cities, which seem to be focused on efficiencies, optimization. At least that's the public perception. So how do we ensure that also the technology, the smart city practices are also dedicated to enhancing, enriching human experience also? I think, Maurice, you suggested that that's also what motivates some of the applications at the airport. Maybe you could elaborate on that.
Well, I look at it from a smart cities perspective is every efficiency that you can, well, let me backtrack real quick just to give you an idea. Some point in time in May, I'm going to have the first ever hackathon that's going to bring airport, seaport, and transit together so we can actually come up with creating an efficiency, whether it's in resiliency, whether it's operational improvement, layered across. I have the largest 5G CBRS infrastructure network in any airport in the world. and it allows me to be able to ramp up and scale and do innovation type projects relatively quickly. But I want to be able to take these three verticals that drive the economic engine and drive you through Miami-Dade County. How can we create some efficiency? So that's going to be one of the things that we need to look at. We need to be forward thinkers to get us to that level. But I need to look at it with the advent of FIFA, new construction and new development. It's how do I reduce our carbon footprint? So if I can leverage AI, I'm doing that now with my new virtual reality hologram that we've deployed at our airport, and we'll talk about that later. But by leveraging that, my consumption of other materials and other raw materials now goes down. So from a resiliency perspective, it's great. From a smart, if you can adopt some of that within Miami-Dade County and how we traverse through this city, then there's some operational improvements that can be attained. And I think we need to look at it from that. I'm designed to be the visionary, so what can I take at my airport and bring it to the community? I want to be able to move that process along. It's going to come with coordination with individuals sitting on this dais, but at the end of the day, that's my goal and that's my intent.
If you're solving someone's true pain point, they're happy to change behavior. Like, I'll take Maurice's example. If you had asked me 5 years ago if I wanted to have my face scanned by the federal government in order to get, for any purpose, I would have said zero chance, right? There's no way. Meanwhile, I get to the airport and I've got two choices. I could wait in a very long line, or I could give all my information to TSA in advance and get pre-check. And then I can go through Clear, which does a biometric scan. And now, I was just there the other day, there isn't anyone even checking the ID anymore the second time. I walked right through a plexiglass gate. It was very convenient. I changed my behavior very quickly, right? And all of a sudden, I don't mind giving away my biometric data, and I'm laughing at people waiting in line, and American Express pays for my Clear membership. So it's all a win. But a lot of times what you'll find is, I also have an AI platform in the healthcare space, and it's a similar thing with construction. A lot of technologists came in, not from the industry, but saw an underserved community and an opportunity to build a solution. They built great solutions. The tech is awesome, but it doesn't solve the actual pain point that the industry felt, because they didn't come from the industry. They came from Stanford or some other school that taught them how to be AI specialists. The document crunch, self-promotion, was me and my co-founder are two construction lawyers who hated reading construction contracts, right? It was a huge pain point for everybody. So we designed a solution just for that, right? Very specific pain point, but it resonated. Now, we had to hire people to teach us how to build the tech, because that's not our background. But solutions that come from the pain point and that have lived and breathed it, you will get much faster adoption, and people will overcome their prejudices much more quickly than if it's not truly hitting and solving for their pain.
Yeah, so I'll chime in. It is really important, especially in the public sector, that the user experience be first and foremost in the adoption of technology. This is, a driving point. That you identify those pain points, and that's what you're trying to solve for. Early in my career, I had a project creating this regional transit fare collection system. We had 7 different agencies around Puget Sound, and there were hundreds of different ways that people could pay their fare on them, and they weren't coordinated. So we introduced this electronic fare collection system, which replaced all those with one card. Now, it ended up creating a lot of complexity, but it was all on the back end, because we had to figure out how to allocate revenue among the agencies based on the trip take and all that sort of a thing. But it reduced the complexity for the user, and it was wildly popular. That was an example, I guess, of putting the user and trying to solve their pain point first as the driving need for the technology. That's what the public sector needs to do, put those pain points out there for the technologists to try to solve, rather than having the technologists come out with a solution looking for a problem. So that's been my experience working on both the public sector side and on the technology side.
It's like putting that square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't happen. One of the things, how many engineering majors in here or architectural majors in here? All right, so some creative thoughts for you. When I flew back from London last week, everybody has these electric charging stations that looks like this big monstrosity at every mall, right? You like that? No. Guess what they do in London? Every light pole set up, structured, beautiful light pole is a charging station. Open your car, take out the charging cable, plug it in, charge your vehicle. And by doing that, since you're being green and reducing the carbon footprint, you just pay for the charge of charging your vehicle. And I think they partner with Shell, but you don't have to worry about paying for parking in the street. It's clean, it's efficient, and you're not leveraging or utilizing excessive amount of space. So from your design architecture perspective, like what Tesla has and everything else, you don't need to build out this entire room to be able to charge 8 Tesla stations. Light pole, parking space, nothing's different as you're walking down the street. With each pole, basically, you can charge your vehicle and just keep moving. It is an entirely different concept. So we want to be innovative. You want to look at smart cities, look at smart development, because if you're doing that, the level of adoption, the level of engagement, because we always say, if I have to drive to the mall or to charge my vehicle, then maybe I don't need an electric vehicle. But if I make it more efficient and readily available, then why not have that different level of consideration? Then we could use AI predictability. Do we need to add more types of vehicles? How can we structure that to say, hey, I want to be part of a smart city level of engagement, and what does that look and feel development look like in the long term?
So I heard all of you talk about AI a lot, and 10 years ago, we wouldn't have heard AI. I think it would have been automation, machine learning, data analytics, but also computer vision, you know. And arguably one could say that, you know, AI is nothing new in this context. Smart cities, we've been talking about it all along. It's just an intensification of something that was always there. The counter argument is that no, this is really something that is quantitatively and qualitatively different. No, it's a new paradigm. I wonder where would you put it? Is it just an intensification, or are we talking about a different beast here?
So I think AI is an intensification of old technology. I mean, ultimately it finds its roots in linear algebra and complex math. So it's just a lot sexier to say AI than linear algebra because the vast majority of the population hated math. Having said that, I think the advances in computational power have made it, you know, exponentially, you know, an exponential rate of increase. So, you know, what we're seeing is the pace of change accelerating with Moore's law, and so it's both a intensification but an acceleration of past technologies.
But like what the technology we were talking about earlier in smart city discussions were always described as new tools. But are we talking, isn't this a whole new kind of infrastructure that we have to build? It's not just a new tool, it's a whole new paradigm for thinking about cities.
Well, it's better access, right? So the more people accessing this, the more resources you need to run it. But the processes, I think, his point is, it's not some new necessarily invention per se. It's just making it more accessible to folks. You could ask ChatGPT a question in plain English and get an answer. When we first built out Document Crunch, we were using old school machine learning, and we had to review over 1,000 construction contracts to identify provisions to teach the platform. It seemed magical at the time when we would upload documents and all of a sudden it would be dissected, but it really wasn't all that magical. It wasn't even new technology. It was just applying this concept and sweat equity. It took 2 years to do it. But then overnight, the compute got so powerful that you then had generative AI. And with generative AI, it was almost learning not by itself, but you had to do much less work to get the same result. And overnight, everything we had built for 2 years got tossed out. And we switched platforms. But I don't know that, I think it's the volume of people accessing it now, that's really the bigger change, not necessarily the tech.
Right.
And I agree. I think it's really the democratization of access. And I think there's a lot of potential for AI to make the old fresh. So if there was a discussion earlier about why we all like to go to Europe and look at the old buildings. One of the technologies that's coming out of AI is the ability to use AI to create CNC machines that can actually carve stone into intricate shapes. And so maybe AI actually provides a revival in beautiful architecture, because instead of it costing, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to have, carved granite facades, suddenly we can use AI to do it at much lower cost.
Yeah, I would say that there is a paradigm shift as AI goes from sort of leveraging human capability to accelerating and advancing overall systems capability. Here in the transportation traffic engineering world, we could look at say a traffic cop at an intersection, being there providing intelligence, not just dumb signal timing, but responding to real-time conditions and making sure traffic flows smoothly. Now we can have an AI do that, not only at that intersection, but at every intersection, in an instant communication with all the other intersections to optimize the network efficiency. And collecting real-time data about what's working and what's not working, and getting that to the traffic engineers so they can think about whether or not there needs to be a new traffic circle or some other intervention to make their things flow smoothly. So that's beginning to exceed what we could do with a lot of people on the ground. Going from being able to replace human capability with really expanding it, I think is a paradigm shift in the development of smart cities and smart systems.
I think then what you've gone from Watson that no one had access to ChatGPT, what we all have access to. One of the things from a smart cities perspective is, and I go back and I do the correlation to Europe, we have this propensity, we build the infrastructure, then we build the surrounding communities. In Europe, they build the communities and then figure out how do we build the infrastructure to be able to support the communities and give growth. So why don't we look at that a little bit and say, well, based upon that level of information and that level of data, I should be able to gather everything in regards to traffic patterns, day of the week, holidays, what it would look like, and then therefore now traffic signaling systems can be a little bit better, operational hours for stores can be a little bit better, transit systems can be a little bit better, because you know what the ridership looks like, you know what the traffic flow looks like on our congested roadways. So now we can give better predictability of what we can expect to deal with capacity and demand. So now we build for capacity. And what happens when demand exceeds capacity? I feel like I'm teaching the class. All right. What happens when demand exceeds capacity? You have congestion, right? So now you have to build more for capacity, but you know for a fact what's the rate of growth in Florida. So when you're building a building, when you're working on a new parking garage, what we do in regards to parking guidance is, one, we're going to lower our carbon footprint, but we're also making spaces available. So you're looking at the demand for movement, passengers, the amount of revenue generated. So now you're building based upon capacity plus growth, based upon demand forecast. And now you're planning for the future. But we're in this society, a lot of the times we're reactive, right? Oh, this just happened, we need to build for more. This just happened, we need to pivot, we need to adjust. So we need to work our way and get in front of some of that so we can do better effective planning, right? And then I think that's critical for any smart city, for any growth, for any level of engagement, to ensure that those things happen. So, and I go back when we talk about in the smart cities environment, you build all of this infrastructure, then you build the communities and realize the infrastructure doesn't serve the community. Then do you really, how long would it then subsequently take you to get to a smart city? It's creating inefficiencies.
I think I can sense that some people here are anxious to...
Or board one, either one.
to ask you certain questions. So please, from the audience.
Earlier you mentioned this sort of challenge with technical people building solutions, looking for a problem. In the last, say, 5 years of all your roles, have you seen a specific instance that you can think of where you sort of overestimated the capacity of AI or some sort of emerging technology and thought, actually a human could have done this a lot better?
Well, I think that our dreams, and I'll use document crunch as an example, the dreams that we had initially, and I'm going back to like 2018, 2019, where we thought the tech that existed then was going to be able to do certain things. And the example I'll give you is, we thought that the tech back then, this is before GPT, could write notice letters to the owner. So if it rained one day and you had a delay on the job, we thought we could teach our tech to write the letter based on the contract and the inputs that you put in. And we went down a rabbit hole for about a year and a half of trying to do that with the current existing technology. And we then realized it didn't work. And there was a better way to do it where the person was more involved, but through more prompting and the like. But then when GPT came out, once we got our models good enough, which took a lot of time to create specific models for this purpose, we're now generating notice letters, we're generating change orders when an RFI response comes back and it's inconsistent with the drawings. The system prompts for a change order request, and it's all automated. It was not possible before GPT, and we spent a lot of money trying to do it, and ultimately people were better. But we've moved past that now. So. But at the same time, what gets generated is never perfect and always requires someone to revise and adjust, so you still keep people in the loop. But instead of having a project manager coming to you and saying, it rained today, what do I do? The project manager can come to you and say, it rained today and I drafted a letter in compliance with the contract. Can you look at it and help me make a change? So it's takes the, that access to information makes someone much smarter, much better.
For me, I'm a little bit different. If I look at it from our perspective, I look at now, given the fact of tech, when we used to develop tech had a very long life expectancy, like 5 years plus. Now it's 3 months to a couple of years. So for me, it's an iteration of change. So for us, we look at, can humans do a lot? Humans have been, and we want to create that balance. But for us, from a tech perspective, and looking at our tech stack and what I'm looking at, I guess my innovation stack right now, the more that I can actually work towards ingesting into the ecosystem for the airport, it's going to be, I need to have it to create more benefit. But given one thing, we're building a new concourse case, $700 million. 6 gates, great, but eventually we're landlocked. When I go from 56 million passengers to 75 million passengers, guess what? Based upon capacity, it's great. The demand, from what I look at, I think it's going to be a lot more. So I need an evolution of tech. I need an evolution of efficiencies. So it's a constant change for me. There will be no norm in our paradigm. And when I'm looking on something for aircraft turnaround time, right? It's like when you exercise certain vehicles. For me, an airplane not in the air doesn't make my airport any money. So I need efficiencies on my airfield. So we're doing aircraft turnaround time using AI. From the time that plane docks and you stand up while the plane has not stopped yet, guys, stop doing that. You're going to get hurt. But once that happens, as soon as that plane docks, cleaning crew is on, fueler is on, food and beverage is on, that plane has to turn in 45 minutes, which means it impacts my revenue from concession because there used to be an hour and 15 minutes. I need innovation in techs, like how can I provide you the services that you need? The airlines can do what they need to do to turn and get you in those seats so you can take off. I need you to be efficient on the runway, taxiway, no FOD, all of these things that create a safe experience 24 hours a day. So for me, it's a constant challenge.
So I think for me, I would say the one thing I find a little troubling about your question is you created this human versus AI question. And so for me, I think the question isn't what are humans better at than AI and what is AI and humans better at than humans. I think overall that humans with AI are more competent than humans without or AI alone. And I think as a developer, I want to create solutions that are using the best of both, the judgment of humans and the raw scale to compute of AI to create the best possible outcome rather than seeing them as opposing forces.
Hello, I want to ask a more practical questions. So I'm from San Francisco, and yesterday I spent 5 hours on the plane. It's suffering for me. So I wonder, from the airline perspective or transportation perspective, do you think AI can help to reduce this flying time for maybe all of us here? Thank you.
Since there's no airlines in there and I'm the only airport here, I'll take a little bit of that. I love flying to LA. That 6 hours is brutal. But if you're looking at it from an AI perspective, I'm trying to understand, the manufacturers, Airbus, Boeing, are creating more efficiencies with aircraft, right? So they're more efficient. You're getting that more of that seamless travel experience. But unless you go into that, back in the days when the Concorde flew in supersonic mode, the efficiencies of speed, it's not there. There's actually 2 entities that are actually coming out with faster jets, if you're willing to pay the extra money to be able to do that. So hopefully that will finalize itself to turn your 5 hours into 2. But leveraging AI is better predictability, looking at next gen and higher space in regards to flying above that 34,000 foot level. So we're seeing some other conversation, but that's more of an FAA government type action. But leveraging AI into that part of the ecosystem, not seeing where the true viability is, but I would assure you my next meeting that I have in a couple of weeks in California with some airlines as well, maybe have that conversation. So send me some questions, and if anything, if I can get that answered and look at it holistically, more than happy to do so for you.
Excellent.
Say, I had high hopes for Elon Musk's Boring Company and the subsurface high-speed transportation. I don't know if that's going to come to fruition, but it maybe.
So I have a quick question. Stephanie McNutt, Comcast Smart Solutions. We're offering many new technologies to help customers, residents, everyone with efficiencies, optimization. And digital signage is one of them. And before I have y'all chime in on how you think digital signage can be a smart technology for cities, for airports, for campus environments, I'll share my experience. This is actually my first time flying to Miami. I fly all the time. I travel a lot. I'm, again, based in Atlanta, but I fly to Lauderdale and some of the other areas. Flew into Miami, baggage claim deserted. Could not find anyone, had no idea how to get to rental. Then I go to the beach, and I'm like, I have no idea where I'm at, and there's no kiosk, there's no wayfinding, and then unfortunately, Eve, I was lost trying to find this building. Digital interactive kiosks, what are your thoughts for efficiency and optimization?
God, that was the best lead-in. I love you. All right, so let's do this. When you go back to Miami, by the way, our wait times are under 40 minutes, so you will not miss your flight back home. Couple of things. I just rolled out 4 virtual reality kiosks in my airport. It's a hologram tied into an omni-channel chatbot because I realized mobile apps are dead. Yes, I said that. But what I've done with an omni-channel chatbot tied to Messenger and WhatsApp and everything else, also with voice, you could have gone to that kiosk. It's there. One is in checkpoint 4. There's 4. I'm going to add some more. And then also when we launch the chatbot, so you can actually go to it, multiple languages, and say, hey, I need to get to the rental car center. I need to get somewhere. It'll generate a QR code and give you 3D turn-by-turn navigation to get you there safely and securely, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a door location, whether it's Uber, the whole 9 yards. So when you go back, please, I'd like for you to use it. Give me that feedback and input. From a digital signage perspective, our digital signage master plan has been updated. So I decided to go ahead and repurpose like old phone booths, payphone booths. I'm going to put digital kiosks in there for wayfinding. So I'm actually restructuring that. I'm working on renumbering baggage carousels to correlate to door numbers to go ahead and give you the level of experience that you're looking for. So great question. The answer is 100% yes. We are working to put those items in place, and I'll take any additional comments that you want to email me, send me. But please try out those 4 units and give me your feedback.
Thank you, I will.
Well, thank you. I think we ran out of time. We could stay and talk much longer, but thank you very much